cost you $195,000 in interest.
That's disgusting.
Almost 200, almost another house.
Yes.
Basically, this area, people really don't think about how much interest, what is the actual cost of this financial decision that I'm making. All of this interest that is costing us, sometimes we get so comfortable with the payment that we just forego the fact that, oh, by the way, if you keep being comfortable with this payment, it's going to cost you another couple $100,000, you know?
Yeah.
People do it with the mortgage all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, I can handle the mortgage payment, I'm good. Okay, but what about all this extra money that you're putting into the lender's pocket? Do you want some for yourself?
Yeah.
You know, what if you did things a little bit differently? What if you had a little less Starbucks, you know? What's up, everybody? Thanks so much for joining me again for another podcast episode. Today we are talking about, of course, money. Yes, and I have a special guest today. Miss Amanda Morton has joined us. Can you just give her a round of applause from wherever you are? Yay! Thank you so much for hanging with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, you know, we've been talking with different families about their success stories, and we're just so very proud of the accomplishments that we've been able to help people with. And so you're one of those, you
Yes.
and your husband. And so today we're going to really take a deep dive into how things have gone for you since the time that you've started working with us up until this point. So we're going to talk about what was, what is, and what's to come. So let's just dive right in. Now, I know you started originally with us by yourself in 2017.
I did.
And I do want to speak to that for a minute, because that actually happens on occasion where we've had couples that, sometimes one spouse may say, well, we don't need a financial advisor. We can handle this by ourselves, you know. And, for varying reasons, sometimes one spouse is just not ready to be on board. And so sometimes we have had where we may start with one spouse and, work with you financially in that particular case. And then later, something miraculous happens and the couples come together,
Yep. Most definitely. That was, in fact, the case.
Oh, okay.
In our situation, yes. I said, I will go forth and test the water, and I'll come back and report. And I did, and it did give me, I think in couples, very often there's one person in the couple that is more geared towards the financial side of things. We're a balance, we're a team. So I'm more that person. So I said, I'll go forward and I'll try and I'll see how it works out for me in my personal situation. But one thing that I found out quite early on was that it's going to take both of us. We're going to need to come together as a team. So shortly thereafter, I was able to convince my husband, and it didn't take a lot of convincing because he saw the proof in the pudding with me. And he began to see processes and things fall into place for me. So it was very encouraging for him to join and become a team.
Absolutely. And that was just a year later. So that was 2018. Which was really great. And, you hit a good point where you were talking about how typically one person is kind of more money-minded. Because sometimes in some households, some people grew up where, maybe the husband is supposed to take care of everything money-wise, or sometimes the wife is supposed to take care of it, or it depends on who makes the most money, or, we come up with all these different things. But realistically, God created us opposites to attract to create balance. And so when couples realize that and begin to operate with that, you'll really begin to see the strength in being able to work together. So like you said, in every couple instance, there definitely has been one person that is more money-minded than the other. And typically one person is the saver and one person is the spender. Which one are you?
A little of both. I think my husband is very cautious.
Okay.
You see, in all aspects. So, and his caution sometimes prevents him from, experiencing or exerting himself in areas that he wouldn't normally go. You see, and I like that. I like the cautious behavior. And then with me, I'm a little bit more spontaneous. So cautious and spontaneous. And so together, we do create that balance. But I think that, spending and then regretting it after has sort of been my my behavior.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I think that actually is a good thing in some regards. Like I'll have clients that maybe come back to their next session and they feel bad that, they were off track with the budget or they overspent in a particular area and they're like, oh man, I feel so bad because of da-da-da. And I'm like, I'm glad you feel bad because if you didn't feel bad, I'd be more concerned.
Yeah.
I'd be more concerned that you just don't care about, your finances enough to want to do better. So I actually, I don't want to say enjoy it, that's not the right word, but I'm happy about the fact that there's some feeling that's coming along with, hey, I overspent and like this is not okay because I have a mission.
Correct.
I'm trying to get some things done.
Yeah.
So it was really exciting to see that, you guys came together. And there was something else that you said, and I have missed it now. Maybe it'll come back to me of what you said a few minutes ago that I wanted to double click on, but maybe it'll come back full circle. I don't know. But I do want to just point out that when you guys came together, actually when I first started with you, I went back and looked in the notes, and you had $175 in savings at that time.
I did, yes.
I mean, and that's, believe it or not, that's actually a common occurrence where, we will meet with couples who are or families who are middle-class families, whether single or married. And, they come in the door with really great jobs and they make really good salaries, but their savings does not reflect what it should based on what they make. Yeah. So, it's definitely a common occurrence. But of course, you can laugh at the 175 now because that's not where you are. Yes.
It was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable to have such a small savings, especially at our age. It just seemed as though we were starting from the very beginning, that it wasn't intentional, and unintentional saving usually results in that fashion, and also not working to a budget. Yeah. We didn't have a budget, so we didn't have a plan.
Right. That's right. And the budget is your planning tool.
Correct.
That's really, it's the foundation for which your money decisions are made. And so not having that is like walking blindly,
Correct.
Yeah. And you just kind of
accidentally
money,
saving.
Right. Money's just going in and everywhere. Now, you brought up a good point because you were saying at our age. And so you guys are in your 50s.
Yes.
And so I think that's important to point out because sometimes we get families that are a little hesitant because they feel like, I'm too old, it's too late. I mean, I have couples that I'm working with now in their 70s right now. And they are doing a really great job knocking it out of the park in their 70s. They're already retired. But, they're a testament, and I've had more than just them, but they're a testament to it's never too late. Whether even if, you feel like maybe you aren't where you thought you should have been by 50, whatever, it's not a matter of feeling bad about it. It's what are you going to do about it? Yeah. You got time. So now what? What's the plan now that, okay, we're aware this is where you are, but there's always ways for as long as you're breathing and working and making money, there's a way to create a new plan.
And overcoming, I think, the fear of judgment. As you get older, that becomes very prevalent. How you feel about, being judged.
Right.
And so finding somebody to help you, somebody professional to help you that alleviates those fears, it's a relationship.
Absolutely.
So as soon as you meet a financial advisor or somebody similar, you have to feel comfortable with that person.
Absolutely.
Because you have to be transparent.
That's right.
And you have to be able to disclose your stumbles along the way, because there will be. You're not, just because you have a plan doesn't mean that it's going to go smoothly. There are going to be bumps in the road. Life's going to get in the way. And having that person that you can go into and say, this has happened. Yeah. So it's going to take us off our plan. What's the best way to move?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then once you build that bond and that relationship, you're almost excited to meet with your person. You're almost excited to reach out to them and say, something else has come up, but I know that you can help me in that situation. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's where we are.
I love it. We're kind of like Planet Fitness, judgment-free zone.
Yes.
Like, hey, when I see the numbers, it gets me excited because, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at all the possibilities,
Yeah.
Where other people are looking like, okay, this is what it is, huh?
Yeah.
This is what we're working with. So in 2018, at that time, when we put everything into our software to kind of look at the snapshot of where you guys were. At that time, you guys had 17 debts, which included your mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And
double figures.
Yes.
Gosh.
You know, there was a lot going on there, you know. And so those debts totaled $316,000 at the time, which again, like I said, included the mortgage.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's the biggest piece. And with the way things were going at that time, if you had not met with us and you were just kind of, you know, doing, if y'all were just continuing to do things on your own, it was going to take you guys 26.9 years to pay off all of your debts. Now, this was 2018. So the idea of being in your 50s and then it's going to take another 26 years, you're well into your 70s, almost 80, you know, of getting out of debt. Like, what? That's not really what I desire.
It's extremely uncomfortable. By that point, it was a snowball. You see, having a terrible relationship with money and fighting to survive, and it's just survival every time. You know, as you move through the years, it's survival, and your snowball becomes larger and larger and larger, and you can't see over it, around it, under it. You're just blinded by it.
Yeah.
And that's where we were, really.
Yeah. And I bet a lot of people can really relate to that, who are in debt situations and they can't see any light, you know, at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Especially sometimes we get clients that are in really, really difficult situations where they come into the door with more debt than they have income.
Yeah.
You know, and in those instances, it's almost, you know, for them, they're like, we don't even know where to begin. we don't know the beginning from the ending because we've just been, like you just said a second ago, trying to survive, you know, and trying to see how can we pay everybody, you know. There are those circumstances too. So, but like I said, there's always a way with willpower and a good financial plan and being willing to change your as Joyce Myers has said, stinking thinking. Then anything is possible, you know.
Commitment.
Absolutely.
You know. And honestly, intentional commitment. Because sometimes we commit to things because we feel that we're here now. We may as well say we're going to go forward. Yeah. But honestly, you know, you do as a couple have to be really honest with yourselves. Is this the most important thing to us? Important goal for us at this moment in time and moving forward? And that's a serious conversation. And I think as a couple, as you travel through the process, you're going to need to meet regularly to say that to each other.
Absolutely.
Are we still committed? Is there anything more that we want to change? How do we feel about each of our sort of participation in this program? How do we feel that we're both doing? You know, because if you're bringing another element, a very important element into your relationship as a married couple, you're going to have to check on that quite often, you know, because certain things could be snowballing. Perhaps one party is feeling a little bit overwhelmed with how the other party is enacting with the process. And so we've done that successfully, and we've kept a handle on it, and we're thriving within it. And then we celebrate as well. Every time we set our own milestones, and then when we reach them, we celebrate.
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should. Celebrate. That's right. That's a major accomplishment. So speaking of celebration, so like I was saying, those 17 debts added up to $316,000.
Yeah.
And of that, if you had waited until the end of that 26 years to continue paying things normally, it would have cost you $195,000 in interest.
That's disgusting.
Almost almost another house, basically.
Yes, another house.
In interest just on this debt. And this debt is a combination of credit cards, loans, mortgage, you know, all of that stuff combined. And so we put together some strategies. And so that would have been basically they would have taken $316,000 of debt and turned it into $512,000 of debt because of the amount of interest. And that's an area that I don't want people to take lightly as you watch this or listen to this, because this area, people really don't think about how much interest, what is the actual cost of this financial decision that I'm making. All of this interest that is costing us, sometimes we get so comfortable with the payment that we just forego the fact that, oh, by the way, if you keep being comfortable with this payment, it's going to cost you another couple $100,000, you know? Yeah. People do it with the mortgage all the time. Yeah. Oh, I can handle the mortgage payment. I'm good. Okay, but what about all this extra money that you're putting into the lender's pocket?
Correct.
Do you want some for yourself? Yeah. You know, what if you did things a little bit differently? What if you had a little less Starbucks, you know? Maybe if you bought a little less on Amazon, you know, could you redirect some of that money into a way that's going to benefit you in the future so that you're not working forever just so that you can pay bills.
Correct. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
just bobbing around, basically.
Right.
In the ocean of life, just sort of bobbing around and not really having a clear direction or a clear path, or and being too concerned about what it's going to take to overcome that. But like everything, like potty training, like learning to ride a bicycle, like learning to swim, once you get that routine and methodological process in order, it becomes so much simpler and life is so much clearer. You know?
So over from 2018 to 2022, during that 4-year time span, you guys paid off 14 of those 17 debts.
We did.
I'm going to find an imaginary applause. Because that is just amazing. So what do you think, how difficult was that during that 4-year period? Like, what did you guys have to do as far as your communication? Like, you know, we set other things in place as far as, you know, changed up your grocery budget and your personal allowance and things of that nature. So, you know, what kind of things did you guys have to do differently as far as your discipline?
Yeah, a lot. The discipline was in itself had several factors attached to it. So discipline, like thinking before you spend, planning and thinking ahead, holding yourselves accountable. You know, because sometimes you simply like, you know what, I'm going to do this now, and when I get home, I'm going to figure out how that's not the right way. So everything had to be intentional, whereas I just mentioned earlier that I was more spontaneous. So that was the hardest part for me, was to change that to be, more thoughtful in the things that I did financially. So honestly, the hardest thing was the discipline. And so in the discipline, we were like, okay, this is what we want to be disciplined in. So what are the tools that we need to use to make sure that we can achieve that? Such as certain budget items, like groceries. You don't necessarily only go grocery shopping once every 2 weeks, for example. There's top-up shopping, etc. So we recognize quite quickly that if we swipe our card, we're going to go over budget because we're not really able to calculate how much we've already spent on that.
Right.
So we were advised, and this was some of the best advice, to take the cash out for grocery shopping, and yes, use cash to pay for your grocery shopping.
Can you say that one more time? Use what?
Use cash.
Yeah, that right there. To all the debit users across America. Use cash.
Put it in an envelope or a Ziploc bag or a separate purse, whatever you like. Just make sure that when that purse is empty, you are done. You know, you're done with that budget line. And so that was the trickiest thing for us to do. And now it feels so natural to do that. You know, what else did we have to work on? Communication. You know, so I already mentioned that I'm sort of the financial one. So I'm the one going into the program and reconciling and balancing and so on. And if I see in the statement that there's been an unintentional purchase for something in particular that my husband has made, that, that I communicate with him that it's really important that if we go out of budget that, we've got to discuss it beforehand.
Right.
And so our communication and our relationship is stronger for it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yes, there's power in working together. Now, you touched on two very important points. One was about buy it now and worry about it later. You know, how you were saying that, that method doesn't work. And that is such a common occurrence with people sometimes, that the impulse shoppers that, I'm going to just go ahead and get this and, I'll just figure it out later. Or sometimes when I've had some clients that are trying to get adjusted to the whole use cash, I'll probably say that about 5 more times. But when they're trying to get adjusted to that, and they try to justify, I didn't take cash out. I did good one pay period, but I didn't take cash out the next period. But I did really well. My budget was $200, but I only spent $210. Okay, but if you had cash, $210 wouldn't be an option.
Yeah, something would have been put back.
Right. You're going to be at the register. But you know what? I don't need these grapes. I don't need these chips. You got to make some hard decisions.
Yeah.
So the cash is really, really a big deal because people, whether intentionally or unintentionally, swipe the debit card and, just willy-nilly, just don't even think about it. Oh, it's just $10. Oh, it's just $20. And then before you know it, you spent $180.
Yeah.
Like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I don't know how I spent that much money. It's amazing.
And, using the cash method just takes away the need to be so worried about it. Who wants to stand there calculating what I spent on Tuesday, what I spent the Monday before to make sure I'm still in budget, and then all the stress that's associated with that.
Right.
So you need to put things in place according to who you are and who the couples are. What are our characteristics? What do we need to put special energy into, and what tools do we need to help me with my spontaneous purchasing, and my husband with whatever might be something that he needs to work on, and that's what you really need to do. Don't make excuses, because it's more or less the same pattern. So now you're in a specific program or have a specific process, but you're still making some of the old decisions. You want to do away with all those old decisions.
That's right.
And reinvent some new ones. And
Absolutely. Yeah, the financial strategies, like you just said, do have to be given in such a way that is going to address habits that aren't serving you well.
Yeah, correct. And do identify them.
Yes.
Otherwise, they stay in there like an elephant, white elephant in the room. Just identify them.
That's right. That's right. So having this whole financial shift is definitely more than just, can I put numbers to paper? Can I follow a budget? It's an entire financial lifestyle change and a whole mindset shift. You absolutely have to change the way you think about money and the decisions that have caused you to not be where you think you should be.
Correct.
Sometimes I'll get clients that'll say, I often ask the question, what do you feel is the reason that you aren't where you like to be? And sometimes the answer is, oh, I lost my job. I was out of work for 3 months, or I was out of work for 8 months. I got sick. It's a number of reasons. And though that might have been the actionable reason that happened, that's not the root reason for the financial difficulty.
Like the root cause of it isn't exactly that.
Exactly. The whole root cause is you weren't prepared financially from the beginning.
Yes.
Which is way more of the issue than just, oh, I lost my job. Because if you were prepared financially, losing your job would have just been a brief vacation.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Oh, I had a 3-month break. Yeah, it was great. And I'm still fine financially. All my bills are paid. So anyway, so let me keep moving. So when we started strategizing in 2018, like I was saying, at that time, we kind of planned that you guys would be, based on how we kind of changed things around, you guys would be completely out of debt in 7.6 years, that's already exciting. And for some people,
yes, it is.
They're probably raising the eyebrow like, okay, what? Some people probably sat up straight. I'm sorry, what did she just say? Yeah, I said 26.9 years is how long it was originally going to take you guys to get rid of these 17 debts totaling $316,000 with the interest was going to be $512,000. But then we turned that all around and just reallocated the same money, mind you. It's not like you went and got another job.
Right.
We're talking about the same money here.
Yeah.
And we came up with a plan for you guys to be out of debt in 7.6 years.
Yeah.
So then we took that next 4 years from 2018 to 2022, and y'all did a really good job of attacking the debt, and you got rid of 14 out of the 17 debts. And then some life stuff happened.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about that?
Oh,
yeah.
So, we are at an age now where my husband and I have grandchildren. So we have adult children that are over the age of 18. At that time, actually, we had one child under 18. So I say that to say that we still had a commitment and obligation financially to our youngest child. And then, of course, adults have things that are going on, and your adult children often need your assistance as well. And so life was just sort of throwing things at us, and we were trying to manage where we were in the process, and also manage the things that were coming at us. But all it takes really is just a reevaluation at that time. Let's just stop for a moment. Let's just reevaluate. Don't allow us to become overwhelmed with the being thrown off path a little bit. The main thing, the most important thing that we did is reach back out. reach back out and say, Breanna, we've run into a couple of hurdles, a couple of bumps in the road, and we don't want to get swallowed up by this, so we need to reevaluate. And that's what we did. And it was phenomenal that we did that. Because I was, there's a little bit of what I call like Weight Watchers syndrome, to me, where you've paid hundreds of dollars to Weight Watchers and you've only lost like half a pound. And so you're embarrassed to return, you're embarrassed to go back and say, this hasn't worked out. We sort of, things have come on top a little bit. But we didn't feel that way. We had to first talk to each other and be okay with what was happening and then take that problem to Breanna and the team, and it was the best decision that we made.
Absolutely. So now, okay, so that happened, that was 2021. 2021?
Yes, I think it was.
22. Yeah. It was 22.
Was that?
I think it was 2022 when we had to it was last year when we reevaluated.
Oh, yes, it was, yeah.
Yep, it was last year we reevaluated. And we had to, like you said, revamp the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, sometimes I think, people have to remember, we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And, but the bottom line is every day is a new opportunity.
Yeah.
So though you may fall off here and there, that's a part of the process. You're still trying to get used to these new habits and whatnot. And so sometimes people hit bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had other clients that have run into the same, and they do exactly what you did. Call us back. Hey, we need a new plan. So, and so anyway, that being the case, we came back together to revamp your strategy. And at that point, you had some other debts that had kind of been added on.
Yeah.
But still, not forgetting about the fact that 14 were gone is amazing. So that already says if you can do it once, you can do it again.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to say that, when this time around, when we came back to revamp the strategy, now it's, as of right now, it's 5 years left.
Yeah.
That all of the debts will be gone.
Yeah.
Everything, including the mortgage.
Yeah.
5 years done.
Oh,
5 years.
It's going to be a wonderful retirement.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we're going to take a brief break, and we'll come right back and get more into this. So we were talking about this 5 years that we're excited about, that in 5 short years that you will be completely debt-free. This is life-changing stuff, people. I mean, really, if you think about it for a minute, most people, when they think about, I just want to get out of debt, they're thinking about their credit cards, they're thinking about their loans, they're not thinking about the mortgage.
Yeah,
you do have a handful of people that are like, I would love to have my mortgage paid off by the time I retire, but honestly, the average person is not thinking about that, or if they are, they don't see how it's going to be possible to do it.
Correct.
But it's very possible, because that same money that people are freeing up, when you look at how much money you're paying out monthly to credit cards and loans, sometimes those numbers are thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem becomes when people pay off those debts and then they start using the money for other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to go and do this. Now I'm going to do... No, you need to act like that money doesn't exist for the benefit of now focusing on the mortgage as the last debt. And in doing so, that's going to allow you to double up on those payments, sometimes pay more than double and be able to knock it out. So yes, it does take a lot of discipline to be able to do it. But to say that you started in 2017 originally on your own, and to now be in 2023, which is only can't do math today, 6 years later, and then we're adding another 5 years, you guys will still be really, really young with no debt and the ability to retire.
Yeah. We didn't even fathom that for a second. We didn't even consider that would be a possibility. So now that it is our reality, it has made us even more enthusiastic about it all. So, for example, when you're working to a budget, that doesn't mean that you don't get to live life. That doesn't mean that you don't get to have fun. It just means you need to plan it. And let's face it, people are like, oh my goodness, I don't want to plan when I'm going to a concert. Why not? You know, why not? Why don't you want to plan when you go to a concert? Because you know when it's coming, you know probably how much it's going to cost. The spontaneous behavior for me came from, hey, Mandy, would you like to go and see XYZ at such and such place in concert? And I'll be like, oh, yeah, great. Okay. How much are the tickets? 230. Oh, okay. I have a card. And so, you know, swipe the card and now you've just added $230 to your credit card, which you're not going to pay off right away because none of this was intentional.
Right.
And then now you're paying interest. And if you really think about it, you're probably going to pay about $500 for that very same ticket by the time you finish paying for it. And so, but had you planned it, it goes in the budget, there's no interest, you pay what you have for it, you don't swipe a card, you're using cash, etc. And so that's, you know, that's really where we are in this process now, is just recognizing that being intentional doesn't mean that the quality of life diminishes. It actually means you have a better quality of life, honestly.
Yes. I am so glad you brought that up. That is such a very valid point, because I'm sure that, as I was saying, you know, you could double up on your mortgage. You know, some people were probably like, she wants us to eat Franks and beans, peanut butter and jelly. Like,
no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, you still have the ability to travel.
Yeah.
You know, they're still traveling. They're still buying food, normal groceries. They're still eating well, you know, and Amanda likes to cook, you know. She's Miss Chef here, you know, so she likes to have all the ingredients and that kind of thing to make a gourmet meal. So it's important to note, like she said, that just because you're on a budget or just because you have a financial plan, because you're trying to secure your everyday life, but also trying to secure your future, does not mean that you have to give up everything that, you know, you like to enjoy doing that makes you happy. You know, you just have to do it differently, like you said, and you have to plan for it. It can't just be willy-nilly, you know, like you said. That's a very valid point about the credit card, 200 and whatever you said, 230, and then by the time you add the interest and everything else, you know, it's like, oh shoot, I gotta pay this back. And a lot of times people aren't even thinking that deeply even about that. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna just drop $100 on the credit card next month. Oh, I'm gonna drop an extra $50 here and there. And some people are just paying the minimum. I'm gonna pay $30 because that's what's due. I'll worry about it later. And you know, but we're not thinking about the true cost, as I said earlier, of that financial decision. Yeah. And before you know it, it adds up and it adds up and it adds up, you know? So, so what do you guys have planned? Do you guys have any travel plans upcoming? Like, you've been to England, you know?
Yes.
And that's not a cheap trip.
No, it isn't. You know what I mean?
But I just want to make sure that people understand, we're not saying that, you know, you got to drive down the road and call it a vacation. You know, you're not going from Maryland to Virginia here. You know what I mean? She went out of the country and was able to travel and do things and still be able to be financially free, you know, in this 5-year window. Yeah,
several times actually. Traveled to the UK several times. My husband and I have a trip planned for Jamaica next year.
Okay.
So we begin now. We've already started. So we begin now. How much is it going to cost? When do you need to pay it by? And then you set up your own savings plan specifically for that.
That's right.
You know, and so by the time we get to Jamaica, we will be paying cash for our vacation, you know, and
I'm sorry, what was that word again? You used what now? What was that?
Cash.
Just want to make sure everybody heard that.
We'll be paying cash. And, you know, cash also means cash on your debit card, let's be clear. But, we will be paying cash for our vacation. And when we go on vacation, our pocket money will be cash. We won't be using credit cards. And I don't mind planning 14 months in advance for a vacation. Why not? You know, I've got no stress, no pressure about it. I know exactly what we're putting away every month. And in between that, we'll have short breaks away. Yeah. But in our maturity, honestly, in our recognition and honesty about what got us to the point where we desperately needed help, a lot of those expressions from people when you say, listen, this is what I'm doing, and then they respond with, oh, I don't want to be on a stringent budget. I don't want to be held accountable, etc. It's quite fascinating to hear people say things like that in response to you introducing something that they're fearful of, really. Yeah. You know, they're fearful of what they don't understand. And so I encourage everyone to at least try to understand it. And you may not be ready at that moment in time, but I think it will resonate. And you'll get to the point where you're like, I'm not doing so great on my own anyway. You know, and a lot of the things that they say to me, I don't want to be on a stringent budget. Well, you're not doing so great on not being on a budget.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be held accountable, but you're not doing so great not being held accountable.
Right. How's that working for you?
Yeah, how's that working for you? And some of you, your relationships are stressed out, and because you're both on different paths and not really coming together. And the most important factor of really your relationship in your life, is your financials. And I'm not even, talking about how your financial behaviors and your circumstances are affecting your children, for example, and how inadvertently you are creating a pattern of behavior, which could actually burden you in the future if your 20 and 30-year-old children aren't doing so well with money because you really haven't been able to pass good advice on to them. Now they're still depending on you as you're going into retirement, and they're still reaching out to you for advice and money and can you save me from my credit card, and I'm on vacation but I've run out of money. I mean, these are real things.
Yeah.
And so, all of those things didn't make us feel good.
Yeah.
We want to be, good advisors to our children. We want to model that behavior. And even though we started in our 50s, we think that's even a brilliant lesson for our children, to show them, look, we were prepared to start this so late in life. We're advising you that you start far earlier.
Absolutely.
So you can do much more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that leads to a good question, which is when should you start getting your finances together? What age realistically, it starts when you're young. Obviously a lot of us didn't grow up learning about money. I didn't grow up learning about money, but it's something that if we have the opportunity to teach kids while they're young, then of course, obviously they have the better opportunity. But as far as for just, sitting with a financial advisor, trying to, get some strategies together, how do I start well? As soon as a person graduates college or gets their first full-time job is a great time to start the good habits from the beginning, so that you don't end up waiting until your 30s or your 40s or your 50s or your 70s, like I mentioned about another couple. So all of that is vitally important. You also unpacked another hot topic that I'm not going to even dive into today, which is adult kids being dependent on the parents. That is a whole lot. I could spend an entire podcast episode just on that subject matter alone.
I think you should.
I probably will, because
it's very real.
It is, and it comes up quite often in these financial consultations with our clients, that they are dealing with that, and just, some of it obviously is what the parent has allowed, but there are ways to deal with that and ways that they should deal with that. But, like I said, I think I'll reserve a whole episode just for that topic right there.
Right.
So lastly, before we wrap up, I want to talk about creating wealth while getting out of debt. Because sometimes people put so much emphasis, I got this money at tax return time, I'm going to put all this money on the debt. And that is not the appropriate way to do things. No. Saving money is just as important as getting out of debt. And if you don't do both simultaneously, you are likely to go backwards, because the moment an emergency comes up and you don't have anything to fall back on, now you're right back on that same credit card, or you're getting another loan, or, and then the cycle just continues. So it's important to make sure that you're saving while you're also getting out of debt. Obviously, you guys have learned that because you now have savings. Like we said, you started at $175. So we've obviously overcome that. But in addition to that, we worked on creating wealth building, strategies, so that while you're also getting out of debt, you also are building another nest egg on top of what you already had in place. Yeah. So what we set up for them, basically we kind of figured out within the budget what they could afford to put aside to, create this plan. And then, as we mentioned, your debt will be done in 5 years. But they have decided, okay, once we're done with all of this debt, now we're going to take this same money that we already didn't get to spend anyway because we were giving it to lenders. So we're going to take another short window of time, another 5 years, and we're going to act as if that money doesn't exist, and we're going to plug that into our wealth building plan. And so in doing so, now you've just created another income stream for yourself, for you and your husband, or access to lump sums, like over $100,000 that in this short window of time that they will have built for themselves to go along with. It's almost a reward. Like, hey, now I'm financially free, and now I will get to reward myself with the extra $100 and something, and I get the benefit of, now I don't have all this debt anymore. I have this money that I can just enjoy. Yeah. Like, that's huge. So kudos to you guys for, even though you had bumps in the road, you still got back up on your horse, you're still sticking to the plan, and now you have a newly revised plan. And I'm so excited for this 5 years that's coming up for you that's going to just, really be an exciting time. We might have to have a party.
I think we should. We'll have to plan for the party.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll have one.
That's right. We have to plan for the party. Thank you again so much for being with me today.
Thank you.
For coming and hanging out and being willing to share your story. Please thank your husband as well. We appreciate him allowing you to come and represent the family. That's really important because they are unified. Just want to make that clear. So until next episode, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.